My parents said they couldn't afford to take me on vacation, then I saw my sister's kids in first class. I didn't say a word. But a week later, they weren't smiling anymore. The moment I saw them walking past me in first class, my heart didn't just sink, it shattered. I was in seat 32B, squished between a coughing old man and a crying baby, clutching my worn-out tote bag and a sandwich I'd packed from home. My parents, my sister Amanda, and her two kids glided down the aisle like royalty, not even sparing a glance in my direction. Amanda was in heels and a silk scarf like she was starring in some airline commercial, and her kids, decked in tablets and noise-canceling headphones, were already kicking back as a flight attendant offered them orange juice before takeoff. I just sat there, frozen. It was only 7 days ago when Mom had called me. "Sweetheart," she said in that familiar, sing-songy guilt voice, "we wish we could do the family trip this year, but money's been tight, you know? Your dad's blood pressure meds doubled in cost and your sister, well, you know how it is with two growing kids." Of course, I said I understood. I always understand. Every year, we take a family vacation. Just a simple thing. A rented beach house in Florida, a cabin up north, something to breathe. It's the one time I actually get to feel like part of something. I'd even requested my time off 2 months in advance, just in case. But this year, apparently, there wasn't enough room for me in the budget. Not even for a shared motel room or a spare seat in coach. But there they were. Not only on the same flight I was taking for my own mini getaway, something I'd planned last minute to distract myself, but sitting up front, in first class. And not just my parents, but Amanda and her entire entourage. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I didn't even flinch. Instead, I smiled politely at the stewardess, buckled my seatbelt, and whispered to myself, "Noted." The rest of the flight was a blur. I watched the clouds pass like ghosts. My heart kept replaying old scenes, birthday parties where Amanda got the Barbie dream house while I got a book, college visits where my dad walked the campus with her, while I rode the bus alone. And now this, another reminder that when my parents say family, they don't mean me. I thought about standing up and calling them out. I thought about walking up to their aisle and asking, "So this is what broke looks like?" But I didn't. Because I knew. I knew that would only get me labeled dramatic or sensitive again. No, I stayed quiet. But that silence didn't mean forgiveness. Because something inside me shifted that day. I wasn't a little girl anymore, waiting to be included. I was a grown woman who just got a very clear message. They didn't want me there. And I was finally ready to show them what that would cost. The beach resort I'd checked into was nothing fancy. A modest little place on the quieter side of the island, nothing like the luxury hotels my family usually flaunted on Facebook. But it was peaceful. And more importantly, it gave me the space to think. I spent the first 2 days walking along the shoreline, letting the wind tangle my hair and the salt water sting my skin. I was trying to shake off that image, Amanda's kids snuggled in plush seats, Mom laughing at something my dad whispered, the clinking of champagne glasses barely audible behind the curtain separating first class from the rest of us. They hadn't even told me they were going. Not even a courtesy text. It wasn't just about the plane. It was about being lied to. Overlooked. Again. This wasn't new. Amanda had always been the golden child, class president, homecoming queen, top of her class. I was quieter, more bookish. My dreams didn't sparkle the way hers did. She wanted to model. I wanted to write. But dreams only mattered if my parents approved of them. And they never approved of mine. Growing up, Amanda got new clothes every season. I got her hand-me-downs. Her ballet lessons were a family priority. My poetry contest? They forgot to show up. And when I got my first apartment out of college, struggling to pay rent, they said, "You'll learn to stand on your own 2 feet." But when Amanda's husband left her and she had 2 kids to raise, my parents stepped in like superheroes, new car, mortgage help, school tuition. They always had enough, just never for me. I tried to let it go. Tried to enjoy my trip. But the betrayal clung to me like seaweed in the tide. And then, on the third day, I got a notification that Amanda had posted photos. I clicked through them slowly, my heart pounding with every swipe. First-class selfies. Fancy dinners. A yacht ride. Sunset photos with captions like "Family is everything, 2 hearts." In one picture, Mom was holding Amanda's youngest with a cocktail in hand, smiling like she didn't have a care in the world. I stared at that screen for what felt like hours. And then I laughed, a short, bitter sound that surprised even me. That's when I knew. They weren't just ignoring me. They were rewriting the narrative. Making it look like this perfect, happy family vacation that I was never meant to be part of. As if I didn't even exist. They wanted the world to see Amanda's kids as the legacy. The future. But they had no idea what I'd been quietly building. They didn't know I had recently gotten a promotion at work, doubled my income, and had been working on a side project for months, a project I hadn't told anyone about. They didn't know the connections I'd made, the leverage I had gained. Because while they were busy toasting each other in first class, I was about to take control of something they never saw coming. The moment I got back home, I didn't rush to unpack or check the mail. I just sat on my bed, scrolling through more photos from their trip, photos they hadn't even tried to hide from me. It was almost like they wanted me to see them smiling without me. Like they were proud of the choice they made. And maybe, for the first time in my life, I wasn't sad about it. I was just done. I'd spent years chasing their approval. Adjusting who I was just to fit into their mold. I played the understanding daughter, the one who never asked for too much, never made a fuss. I showed up for birthdays, for holidays, for Amanda's baby showers, always with a gift in hand and a smile on my face. Even when I was broke. Even when I felt invisible. Because that's what family is supposed to do, right? But now I realized, family isn't supposed to make you feel second class in your own story. And I wasn't going to let them write me out anymore. I booted up my laptop and opened a folder titled Project Nest Egg. It was something I'd started in secret, almost 2 years ago, when I realized no one was ever going to be my safety net but me. I'd been teaching myself how to invest. Started small. Got advice. Took courses. Slowly built a portfolio that was now, surprisingly, worth more than Amanda's entire house. The irony? No one in my family had a clue. They still thought of me as the struggling one. The one who didn't need much. They never asked about my job, my plans, or my life. They were too busy managing Amanda's crises, her missed car payments, her overdue credit cards, the expensive tutors for her kids. And I never corrected them. I let them think I was average. Because average people aren't threats. And that gave me power. A week after their return, my mother finally called. Not to apologize. Not even to ask how I was. Just to casually mention Amanda was having a little welcome back brunch and it would mean a lot if I came. I almost laughed. But I said yes. Because I had a plan. I wasn't going to confront them with words. No yelling. No dramatic outbursts. I was going to show them who I had become, silently, powerfully. And when I walked into that brunch with a dress I bought without checking the price tag, a confidence that came from not needing anyone's validation, and an announcement that would shift the entire energy of the room, they would finally see me. Not as a daughter they forgot. But as the woman they underestimated. And that's always the most dangerous kind. The morning of Amanda's brunch, I took my time getting ready. There was something therapeutic about the process, slipping into a soft silk dress that fit me just right, spritzing perfume that didn't scream for attention but whispered confidence. I curled my hair, did my makeup with care, and when I looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't see the forgotten daughter anymore. I saw a woman who didn't need to beg for a seat at the table. She was building her own. The brunch was hosted at Amanda's house, a pristine, suburban palace funded mostly by my parents. When I pulled into the driveway in my new car, a quiet, elegant electric SUV I'd bought in cash a few weeks prior, I saw them all through the window, laughing, eating, Amanda's kids running around with juice boxes. It looked like a Hallmark card. Except I wasn't part of the picture. Yet. I rang the doorbell. Amanda opened it, her eyes widening just a second too long before she smiled. "Oh. You made it." I smiled back. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Inside, the place was buzzing. My mom looked surprised to see me, though she quickly masked it. "You look lovely," she said, eyes lingering on my dress. "Thanks," I replied, then hugged her loosely. "It's good to see everyone." They hadn't asked about my vacation. Not once. And that silence said more than any words could. I waited until everyone had a glass of something in hand, standing around the living room while Amanda gave a small thank you speech for being the best family a girl could ask for. That's when I cleared my throat. "I actually have a little announcement, too," I said, smiling calmly as all heads turned to me. There was a beat of silence. I let it sit there. Then I began. "Some of you know I've been working really hard these past couple of years. What most of you don't know is that I've started a company, quietly, behind the scenes. I've been investing, consulting, and building something I'm really proud of." I saw Amanda's face freeze. Dad leaned forward, brows furrowed. "A company?" "Yes," I said, pausing to sip my drink. "And last week, while you were all enjoying your trip, I closed a deal that officially pushed us into 7 figures. A gasp. Amanda blinked, confused. 7 figures? Like, income? I nodded, cool and steady. Yep. And I'm launching my own mentorship program for young women starting their own businesses. I'll be featured in Forbes Local Leaders next month. I already did the photo shoot." The room went dead silent. For once, all eyes were on me, not with pity, but with shock. It was quiet revenge. No cruelty. No confrontation. Just truth, standing taller than all the lies that had buried me. I watched my parents try to piece it together. The daughter they had written off had just rewritten her story. And the final chapters were hers to tell. The silence at Amanda's brunch didn't last long, but the discomfort in the room lingered like a thick fog. My mom was the first to break it, clearing her throat and forcing a smile. "Well, that's wonderful, sweetheart. We had no idea you were doing all that." Exactly. They had no idea because they'd never asked. I simply nodded. Yeah, I figured it was time I stopped waiting for people to notice me and just built something for myself. Dad gave a short laugh, nervous, clipped. "Good for you. You always were a quiet one." Amanda didn't say anything at all. She just sat there, eyes darting from her husband to our mom, trying to make sense of what she'd just heard. She looked like someone watching the house of cards she'd been standing on start to sway in the wind. I didn't gloat. I didn't have to. Because Karma had already taken her seat at the table. Over the next few days, things began to shift. First, I got a call from my mother. "Hey, honey, I was wondering if you'd like to come over this weekend? Maybe we could catch up properly, just you and me?" For a moment, I just stared at my phone, blinking at the words that had always felt impossible. My mother, wanting time with me? Not Amanda, not the grandkids, me. I said I'd think about it. Then came Amanda's message. Not a call, a text. "Hey. I was wondering if you'd be willing to share some of your business strategies? I could really use help with our budget. Things have been tight lately." There it was. The desperation hidden behind polite words. The soft echo of reality creeping in. Because while they had been off to luxury vacations, burning through money like it would never end, I had been planting seeds. And now that the flowers were blooming, they wanted a bouquet. But this time, I wasn't offering free handouts. Later that week, I met with an advisor at a private investment firm. We were discussing expanding my business into passive income streams when I noticed a name on one of their pending loan applications, Amanda's husband. He had applied for refinancing on their mortgage. That's when it hit me. They weren't just tight on money. They were sinking. They'd been living off of loans, family help, and my parents' blind generosity. And now that the support was running dry, they were scrambling. Meanwhile, I had options they couldn't even dream of. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need revenge that looked like fire and fury. My success was the revenge. The woman they left behind at the airport, the one who didn't make the vacation list, was now the only one flying above them all. And trust me, I was flying first class. It was a Sunday afternoon when my parents invited me over for dinner. For once, it wasn't a gathering for Amanda's birthday, or one of the kids' recitals, or even some fabricated excuse to celebrate her milestones. This dinner was for me. Just me. I almost didn't go. But then I thought, no, this time, they get to see me on my terms. When I walked into the house, I noticed small things. My favorite dessert on the counter. The good plates set out. Candles. My mom's nervous energy buzzing in the air like static. "Hi, sweetheart," she said too cheerfully, hugging me as if nothing had ever happened. My dad followed, patting me on the shoulder. "You're looking sharp." I sat at the table, composed. Let them perform. I wasn't there to entertain them, I was there to observe. We made small talk. Or rather, they did. I nodded, smiled where appropriate. Then, over the second course, Dad leaned forward and said it. "We're really proud of you, Claire. What you've built, what you've done, it's incredible." It should have felt good to hear that. It didn't. Not because it wasn't true, but because I knew it was too little, too late. "Oh," I said, taking a sip of wine. Funny, I don't remember anyone asking what I was building. Mom sighed. "We know we haven't been fair with the trips, the way we've prioritized Amanda's family. But we thought she needed more help." "And I didn't?" I asked, my voice calm, not raised, but laced with something undeniable. They both fell quiet. "I never asked you for vacations," I continued. "I never asked you to pay my bills. I just wanted to be treated like your daughter. Like I mattered. But instead, I sat in an airport watching you take her kids to Hawaii while I got silence." My mom blinked, suddenly looking older than I remembered. Dad looked down, guilt settling into his features. "We thought you were always so independent. We assumed you didn't need us like she did." I let that hang in the air. Maybe that's the problem. You assumed. You never asked. Amanda wasn't there that night, but her presence loomed. They were trying to pivot now that the golden daughter's shine had dulled. Now that the daughter they'd sidelined had become something they couldn't ignore. "I'm not angry anymore," I finally said. "I just don't need anything from you." Mom reached out across the table. "But we want to be part of your life." I gave a soft smile. "Then start by showing up for me, not when it's convenient, but when it matters. Because I'm not playing second anymore." That was the final line I left them with. I stood up, gathered my purse, and left behind more than just dinner. I left behind years of silent yearning, of trying to fit into a frame that was never mine. I didn't need to fight them. I'd already won. Amanda called me 3 days later. I stared at her name blinking on my phone screen. The same sister who hadn't even texted me when she boarded that first-class flight with her kids. The same one who once laughed when I said I might start a business one day. I let it ring twice, then answered. "Claire?" Her voice sounded softer than I'd ever heard it. Not snide, not dismissive. Just tired. "Hey," I said, flatly. I know you're probably busy. But I really need your advice." There it was again. Need. It rolled off her tongue like she'd just discovered what it meant. She confessed everything. That her husband's investments had gone south. That their vacation fund had turned into credit card debt. That the house they bought for appearances was now drowning them in bills. And worst of all, Mom and Dad were tapped out. "They already gave us a lot," Amanda said, her voice cracking. But now they said they can't help anymore. They told me we should figure things out like Claire did. I almost choked on the irony. That line, like Claire did, was the echo of karma. I didn't gloat. I didn't mock her. But I also didn't offer to fix her mess. You know, I said gently, there's something humbling about figuring it out on your own. You might discover strength you didn't know you had. Amanda was quiet. Maybe stunned that I wasn't jumping in with a plan, or handing her a lifeline like everyone else always had. But I'd learned something important: some lessons aren't yours to teach. Life teaches them better. Claire, she whispered, I was awful to you. I didn't deny it. I know, I replied. There was no fire in my words, no revenge left in me. Just truth. And honestly, that hit her harder than anything I could have said. When I hung up, I sat there for a long time. I thought about how many nights I had cried quietly in my room, wondering why I wasn't good enough. Why I was always the forgotten one. The overlooked one. But not anymore. Amanda was watching everything she'd built, on shallow favors and temporary pride, crumble beneath her. And I was finally standing on solid ground. People like my parents and my sister never expected the quiet one to outgrow them. To rise without noise. To win without applause. And that's exactly what I did. I had become the woman no one saw coming. The same daughter they left behind at the gate was now flying above every one of them. First class. On her own terms. With no one holding the ticket but her. The days after that conversation with Amanda were quiet. But they were also telling. It was as if the universe had decided to pull back the curtain and show me what had been hidden all along, the truth about my parents, my sister, and the family I'd spent years trying to please. My success was never about a flashy vacation or the praise that always seemed to go to someone else. It was never about showing them up. It was about me proving to myself that I could stand on my own. That I didn't need their validation to be worthy of respect. I didn't need them to see me as a failure to know my worth. I was already something they couldn't ignore. Months later, I got an invitation for a family gathering at my parents' house. It was awkward at first, of course. Amanda showed up with her husband, trying hard to look cheerful despite the obvious weight on their shoulders. They didn't look so put together now. There was no air of superiority, no false confidence. Just the pressure of debt and a crumbling illusion of a perfect life. I walked in and immediately saw my parents' eyes on me, hopeful, almost apologetic. But this time, I didn't wait for their approval. I didn't need them to say anything to make me feel validated. I was fine without it. We sat at the dinner table, small talk filling the spaces between the silence. But I could feel the shift. It wasn't just the way Amanda fidgeted in her chair, avoiding my gaze. It was the way Mom and Dad's attention drifted toward me, aware, finally, that the daughter they'd forgotten had something they could no longer ignore. Amanda, after a long pause, looked at me. Claire, I've been thinking about what you said. About figuring things out on my own. I didn't interrupt her. She wasn't asking for my help. She was just acknowledging something she hadn't been able to see before. I'm trying to make things right. With myself. With my family. I don't know if I can fix it all, but I'm working on it. I nodded slowly, offering her the only thing I could, understanding. It wasn't about offering advice. It wasn't about lifting her up from the mess she'd created. It was about letting her find her own way. Letting her learn what I'd already learned, the value of self-reliance. The conversation shifted as the evening wore on, but the dynamic had changed. No longer was I the forgotten child. I was a woman who had stepped into her own, fully aware of the power that comes from quietly taking control of your own destiny. By the end of the night, I stood up to leave, my parents standing with me. Thank you for coming, Claire, Dad said. We know we've made mistakes. We didn't realize how much we had taken you for granted. I smiled, but it wasn't a smile of forgiveness. It was a smile of closure. I'm not angry anymore, Dad. I've moved on, I said softly. But just so you know, I don't need anything from you anymore. And with that, I walked out of the house, free, strong, and finally in control of my own narrative. Amanda, Dad, and Mom stood there behind me, the weight of their unspoken regret hanging in the air. But for me, it was simple. I was flying above them all. And no one could take that away from me. This was the moment I realized that revenge wasn't about being cruel or spiteful. It was about living better, rising higher, and letting those who once overlooked you see you soar. In the end, the sweetest revenge is the one that leaves you standing tall, unshaken, and victorious, without a single word of hate, just a quiet, confident triumph.